Now to the first part of a series you'll see here every Wednesday in the month of March, focusing on men in America. The signs are everywhere. If you're a middle-aged man, you probably know a peer who has killed himself in recent years, at least one. If you're a parent, you may have noticed that your daughter's friends seem a little more on the ball than your son's. They get better grades, they smoke much less marijuana, they spend less time playing video games, they go to more prestigious colleges. If you're an employer, you may have noticed that your female employees show up on time. The young men often don't. And of course, if you live in this country, you've just seen a horrifying series of mass shootings, far more than we've ever had. Women didn't do that. In every case, the shooter was a man. Something ominous is happening to men in America. Everyone who pays attention knows that. What's odd is how rarely you hear it publicly acknowledged. Our leaders pledge to create more opportunities for women and girls, whom they imply are failing. Men don't need help. They're the patriarchy. They're fine, more than fine. But are they fine? Here are the numbers. Start with the most basic, life and death. The average American man will die 5 years before the average American woman. One of the reasons for this is addiction. Men are more than twice as likely as women to become alcoholics. They're also twice as likely to die of a drug OD. In New Hampshire, one of the states hardest hit by the opioid crisis, 73% of overdose deaths were men. But the saddest reason for shortened lifespans is suicide. 77% of all suicides in America are committed by men. The overall rate is increasing at a dramatic pace. Between 1997 and 2014, there was a 43% rise in suicide deaths among middle-aged American men. You often hear America's incarceration crisis. Well, that's almost exclusively a male problem, too. Over 90% of inmates are men. Now, these problems are complex, but we know that they start young. And relative to girls, boys are failing in school. More girls than boys graduate high school. Considerably more go to and graduate from college. In schools at every level, boys account for the overwhelming majority of discipline cases. One study found that fully 1 in 5 high school boys had been diagnosed with some form of hyperactivity disorder. That's compared with just 1 in 11 girls. Many of them were medicated for it. The long-term health effects of those medications, not fully understood, but they do appear to include depression in later life. There are now 7 million working-age men in America who don't work. They've dropped out of the labor force. Nearly half of them take pain medication on any given day. That is the highest rate in the world by far. Wow. Far fewer young men get married than did just a few decades ago, and fewer stay married. About 1 in 5 American children live now only with their mothers. That's double the rate of 1970. Millions more boys growing up without fathers.
My father and I did not meet for the first time until I was 8.
And what was that like when you met your father?
Terrifying, nervous, exciting, everything that I wanted and was scared to see at the same time.
We have an unusual relationship. My son was on the other side of the country most of our existence together, so parenting from afar.
If you agree with the prompt, you'll come forward. I am closer to my mother than my father.
I'm closer to my mom than my dad. My dad was classic farming, raised with all boys, and there was just not a lot of female energy in there. Yeah. And my dad did not know how to translate that to my sister and I.
For me, I'm definitely, obviously I walked up here, I am closer with my mom. When I was a child and when my dad was around, it was the complete opposite. For me at a young age, I was like 13, and I saw him kind of go downhill, loss of a job, gambling problem, and I was like, this really ain't it.
I was closer to my mother by default growing up because I didn't know him until I was 8. So our relationship was quite literally seasonal. I would spend the school years on the East Coast in South Carolina with my mother, and then I would spend the summers and then some holidays with him here in Southern California. So after college, we weren't in communication for 5.5 years. and we reconnected in 2018. So we're newly back in communication within less than 2 years now.
I don't want to be like my father.
He's breathing hard.
That's hard. My father was really there and did all the cool things. What I don't want to be like him is he was overly emphasis on work and money and just less feeling oriented. And to his credit, it's just the way he was raised. I don't have any.
These are
bitterness
all
towards
nice
him at all.
guys.
Yeah, and I
Nice
would go
guy.
along with that too, just in case he does see this, because he's always been offended by my vocalness on social media and whatnot. He probably thinks I just hate him until the cows come home. Quite the opposite. I respect who he is more than he probably ever realizes. He is a honorable guy. He has extremely strong convictions, and for those things, and a great work ethic. So there's a lot of great characteristics he does have. And as I get older and as I get in my emotion, I'm like, wow, that is so my dad.
I embody more things than I thought I would.
Yep.
What's crazy is that I really attached to everything that you said, because it's like in my early teenage years, like I absolutely hated my dad. Like he was just there every day, not working, just being there and just kind of taking up space. The more I look into it now, as I got older, I have an understanding of why he felt this way. It's because, well, early on in his life, because my mom, when she had me, she was only like 21. And, you know, obviously with them both being young, it's like, how do we do this? You know, for him being the man of the house at the time, having that kind of flip to
21's not
my
that
mom
young.
taking more responsibility, I can see where that kind of deteriorates him on the inside, because it's like, you know,
Demasculinized him,
exactly.
yeah.
You know, like, you know, I can't provide for my family. I can't show my son how to be, you know, the ideal dad or the ideal man, or, you know, whatever the case is. And, you know, as I look back into it, I was like I fully get it. And it's like I don't hate him now, because I can't hate somebody who's literally me, in a sense. Like his blood is running through my veins. Without him, there is no me. Yeah, even now I haven't even spoken to him in maybe almost 6 years, like at least like an actual conversation. But he'll pop in like when it's like the holidays. It's honestly it's a terrible feeling, but I know deep down he still cares for both me and my sister. It's just he's lost in his own kind of way, and he doesn't know how to come back from it, which is one thing I'm terrified of. So good to see you guys having that good relationship with your father, and then even you having your father here, like it's crazy. And then even with the rebuild that you guys had, that's, you know, that's great to hear to me as well. And it's like I don't hear a lot of positive things when it comes to the things that combat me on the inside, and it's refreshing. It really is.
That's it. Thank you so much.
All right. Yeah. So the reason I showed those videos was because we have a problem. We have a problem with having so many soft men in our society. We have a problem with men who are more in touch with their feminine side than their masculine side. And that is a problem. I mean, soft men are also nice guys, Mr. Nice Guys. And I spoke before about this book right here, No More Mr. Nice Guy. And I wanted to share more things from this book with you about who a nice guy is. You know, only in our modern world is being a nice guy a bad thing. It's crazy. But you know what? It if that's the term we're using to describe, you know, this type of a man, then, you know, let's talk about it if it fits. So a nice guy is as described in the book, chapter page 24 of this book. It says nice guys are dishonest. They're dishonest because they hide their mistakes. They say what they think people want to hear while they repress their feelings and they repress what they really think because they're scared of judgment, right? They're scared of what people's reaction would be. So they bottle all of that up and they show you what they think you want to see. That's dishonesty, deceitful, right? Nice guys are secretive because they are so driven to seek approval. Nice guys will hide anything that they believe might upset anyone, right? So it comes from a place of fear, a place of insecurity, because they don't want you to see who they are. They rather keep all that inside. They rather hide that part of them that might give you a glimpse into who they really are, but they want to show you that they are perfect, that they are kind and gentle and thoughtful and things like that. But in reality, that's not what is going on. I mean, that I'm not saying that these guys aren't trying to be those things. They are trying to do that. It's just not genuine in the sense that they are overlooking their own needs in order to fulfill the needs of other people, right? Nice guys are manipulative. They manipulate situations. So nice guys tend to have a hard time making their needs a priority, and they have a difficulty asking for what they want in clear and direct ways. This creates a sense of powerlessness. Therefore, they frequently resort to manipulation when trying to get their needs met. So if a nice guy wants something, he doesn't ask for it. He would ask, but in a passive way. He would ask. Well, they don't ask, right? They try to guilt you into doing those things that they want. That's how nice guys ask for things. They don't use their words to communicate that. They use manipulative tactics in order to get what they want. So nice guys are controlling. A major priority for nice guys is keeping their world smooth, keeping everything, you know, ice cold. This creates a constant need to try to control the people and things around them. So when you're trying so hard to keep everything just nice, smooth, peaceful, sometimes you go a little bit further and you try to do that by controlling the people that are around you for the nice guys, right? That's controlling. You can't control what people do, you can only control what you do. Being controlling is not a good quality to have, but this is something that nice guys do. Nice guys, they're not very generous, seem generous on the surface, but when they give you something, they expect something else in return. They only give to get something back in return. It goes back to the manipulation, right? Because they don't really ask you directly, but they try to manipulate situations in order to get their needs met. Okay. let's keep going down the list of who nice guys are. Nice guys are passive aggressive. We all know what that means. They tend to express their frustration and resentment in indirect, roundabout, and not so nice ways. I had an experience which made me actually think about this topic. Um, I was talking to a guy on the phone, and he sounded kind of rude to me. He called me for my services for work, right? And when I met him, I was kind of expecting him to have that same energy, but talking to him in person was very different. He was very nice and kind and gentle, and it made me think, like, where is this person that was talking to me on the phone? Anyways, I had another conversation with him on the phone, and that person came back. The rude, um, arrogant person came back. So I got the picture of what was going on. He was more confident over the phone. He had um, a different personality when it came to being on the phone. But in reality, in real life, or maybe he just saw me and he didn't think it would be wise to get into a confrontation with me. I don't know, right? But for me, the same energy that I have in real life is the same energy that I have on over the phone. I don't have to change that, right? So there is a passive aggressive way about this guy that about how he communicates or approaches things. And that's something that this is talking about here, about nice guys pretending to be a nice guy, right? But when they get into their comfort zone, they are not so nice. Nice guys seem to have a lot going on in their mind. They have a lot going on in the sense of that they carrying a lot of burden, a lot of stress, a lot of stress of trying to figure out what other people want, stress of trying to meet the needs of other people, trying to constantly adjust how they feel or the things that they do to match the needs or the wants of everybody else around them. They neglect their needs in order to make everybody else happy. Going further down the list, it says that nice guys are full of rage. Now, that was one that kind of threw me off because I thought I thought about it. Actually, I've thought about it. When I heard Jordan Peterson talk one time, and he was saying that nice guys or emotional men are one of the most dangerous men there are because they're full of rage, even though it seems that they are nice and gentle on the surface, but because of all the burden and extra weight that they are carrying with them, there is a chance that at some point they might lash out and lose control. Just like we saw in the video, the statistics don't lie. There have been uh, a lot of mass shootings in schools and other places. That tells you a picture of what is going on. There are a lot of men who are going through something: stress, anxiety, dysregulated emotional state of mind, and not knowing how to control their emotions, not having self control, and being full of rage. At some point, carrying all the weight on your shoulders trying to please everybody, trying to make everybody okay with you because you don't see the value in yourself unless you tie it with the validation of other people. At some point, that becomes a burden that you cannot carry. And these ones lash out. They lash out and they do crazy things, unthinkable things. But these are traits of a nice guy. You know, when you see them in the society, these nice guys are gentle. They, you know, they don't argue with you. They don't like conflict. They're scared of conflict. They just want to have everything calm and collected most of the time. But that is not reality. You cannot be scared of conflict. It's part of life, right? It's not you got to figure out um, why you're scared of conflict and you know meet it head on so that when you get into conflict, it's not about the conflict. It's about trying to find solutions to those conflicts. Anyways, nice guys like to fix things. They like to fix people. So using um, the words from this book, it says that nice guys, um, they usually would attach themselves to people that are usually projects. So they attach themselves to people that need work, people that need improvement. I mean, we all need improvement, but these nice guys, they like a person that is a little bit more complicated than the regular, you know. So that is usually what they look for because, in some ways, I guess it makes them feel useful. It makes them feel like they have a place. So, why is it that we have this problem in our society? Why is this something that is becoming more and more common? And you might not think that this affects you, maybe because you're a woman or you don't consider yourself to be a nice guy, but this is definitely something that affects each and every one of us. And I'm going to break it down to you how. Well, we already seen some of the ways that it affects everybody else. From we're talking about the mass shootings, right? You know, you could be driving and you get into road rage. Someone just loses it and they could do things to you. Or you could be, you know, in your workplace and someone loses it and, you know, puts you in an uncomfortable position. So it affects us in so many ways, in our relationships, in our marriages. It affects how we function in our marriages, in our relationships. You know, we have a state now where, because men have become so feminine in their behaviors, that now we have women being more masculine in order to take or play the role of the man because he's not doing it. In a couple of videos ago, I told you that that is not fair to allow a woman to lead you as a man. It's not fair for your family to be led by a woman. And you might disagree with me, but I'm going to tell you why. And let's go to the causes of why we're having soft men and so many nice guys in our family. So previously, we learned from trauma that when in that I talked in that video about trauma, and we learned that trauma creates coping mechanisms in people, and trying to figure out how you can manage your situations, manage the reactions that people give to you. You try to control all of this by maybe people pleasing, by not wanting to have conflicts, by putting other people's needs ahead of yours. Now we're talking about a nice guy. It's a trauma response, really, right? But it's when a nice guy is scared of being abandoned, they jump through all the hoops to make the person that they are with happy, to make their relationships about the person, right? So, you know, it is a problem that affects a lot of us. And we can have nice Mr. Nice women as well. So when I'm speaking of Mr. Nice guys here, I am talking specifically to men, but at the same time, this also applies to women. Hope you realize that. Because the same traits is also evident in women. But I'm talking specifically to men here because this is something that affects us brothers, and we need to step up and change it so that we can play our roles better in the society and actually get better results in our goals that we've set for ourselves, in our relationships, and and in our well-being altogether, our mental health, right? So going back to the causes of Mr. Nice Guy. So there was a time where, you know, divorce started to become a major thing. And the divorce rates skyrocketed. It started to go higher. And the fathers were basically kicked out of the homes. And when the fathers were kicked out of the homes, the kids were left with their mom, with the mothers. And the mothers raised the children, doing the best that she could, but she raised the children in the image of a woman. That's not a good thing. While it's a good thing to embody some of the qualities of a woman, what I'm trying to say, so if you think about a feminine person is compassionate, uh, nurturing, gentle, kind, those type of things, right? So while it's good to have some of those qualities, you shouldn't focus on trying to actually be um, a, a woman, or be too feminine in your journey of being a man. When you become feminine as a man, it takes you away from your true state of being. That is not what we're supposed to be. And a lot of these nice guys are not happy in their personal lives because they're constantly trying to adjust, constantly trying to please, and that goes with in their way of thinking, in the actions that they take. So constantly you see that there is a war within themselves, between, or a conflict within themselves, as far as who they are and who people perceive them to be, and who they want people to perceive them to be. there is that conflict that's constantly going on. If you ask me, I don't think there is a lot of differences between a bad boy and a nice guy. Going back to what I was talking about before, a nice guy and a bad boy share the similar qualities. They both deceive. They both hide who they are. Um, they both manipulate, right? I guess they're both people please, but to a different degree. And I think the major difference between a bad boy and a nice guy is that they are a little bit the bad boy is a little bit more confident, whereas the nice guy doesn't have that. He lacks confidence. He can pretend to be confident, but he's not confident. And they both seek validation. They both seek external validation from mostly women and the people around them. So if you ask me, I don't think the bad boy and and the nice guy are that different. I think they're both the same people, just to different degrees. I think the bad boy is the extroverted version of the nice guy, meaning the nice guy does everything on the inside, right? It tries harder to hide so many things about themselves, whereas the bad boy seems to have come to terms with certain things and realize that those things are part of him, and he just does those things in more or less in the open than the good guy, no, the nice guy would do. Anyways, I'm sidetracking. I'm talking about something else. All right, I was talking about the causes of these nice guys. The first I mentioned was the divorce rates and the loss of fathers in the home. The second is the feminism movement and the women's liberation, right? That has affected our society in so many ways, and good and bad ways, right? But I think if you really pay attention, I think that's a movement that should have stopped a long time ago, and it just didn't, because everything that they were fighting for, they achieved, right? I mean, in the Western countries, at least. In other countries, I understand it's something that should still be going on, but I think there was a deviation from the truth that was being fought for, and the needs of the feminism movement. Now it became something else. It became a whole different um, toxic movement. The demands changed from what was right, what was beneficial to both men and women, and it became something that only benefited women. And I think that is where the narrative was lost. So while it wasn't a bad thing, it became something that was that destroyed destroyed families. That's what we're talking about here. So how does the feminism movement affect men? How does it affect these men and Mr. Nice Guys? Well, people get offended if you are blunt and if you have masculine traits. People feel insecure, or they feel out of place if you have dominant qualities about you, which you're supposed to have as a man because you're a masculine man, right? I'm not telling you to forcefully dominate anybody. I'm just talking about your presence. Your presence should have a dominant side of it, right? But this is something that became a problem with the feminists because, you know, when you come across as dominant, you're threatening to to them, and now they get offended. They push back on your masculinity, and in result, they demasculate you basically, or they soften you a lot, and they put you on that, like what we were talking about before. Then now there becomes a conflict within yourselves to know what is acceptable to do and what you want to do, right? So so you got to check yourself before you act, before you say anything. You don't want to offend the other side, right? And that's something that we all supposed to be doing anyways. We don't want to just spat out nonsense and offend people, but it's like when I gotta do that all the time, it becomes a problem. Then I'm not really able to speak my mind, my thoughts, and I'm not able to be straightforward and blunt about what I really think about things. And that's something that we all should be doing. We should all be communicating exactly how we feel about things, right? um I'm not telling you to be rude to anybody. So, the feminist movement um, gave ways to women being head of the homes, and that became a problem because now kids grew up with only their moms and no male figures in the home. Usually how a woman would raise a kid, she raises that kid, especially boys. She really pays attention to the boys and babies them. Like a woman takes a a child and keeps them being a boy, right? Whereas a man would take a boy and will turn him into a man by teaching him values and and principles, and teaching him masculine ways. But that is not something that women usually do. Women usually raises boys to kind of cater to their own needs. So from the second video you saw, where the boy said that the man says they didn't want to be like their father. They didn't want to be like their father because they're looking at the negative things that their fathers did, right? And women have also trained their kids telling them not to be like their fathers. But the truth is, if your father you had negative traits, it doesn't mean that all of his traits were negative, right? Doesn't mean that he was a bad person. There are also things there that you have to pay attention to and learn from, right? But anyways, going to extremes, so from one part they can see the bad traits that their fathers was doing, and now they're going to the other extreme. No, I don't want to be anything like my father. I'm going to do the opposite. That is usually the drive, right? And that is something that it takes away from your masculinity, because usually what happens is that such a man would continue to pander to women. He'll continue to seek validation from women, and he would, jump through hoops and um, just basically trying to please them in every single way that he can. Because when they respond in a favorable way, it makes him feel like he knows who he is. It makes him feel important. But when you spend a lot of time, like I've heard people say, "Oh, my best friend," and they talking about a woman being their best friend. I've heard men say this, like this is my best friend, and they pointing to a woman being their best friend. Uh, I think when you're more comfortable dealing with a woman, it shows more of what traits you have, right? It shows more whether you're more masculine or feminine. If you were more masculine, you would want to hang out more with men. But if you're more feminine as a man, you would hang out more with women. You know, I pers- personally, like my views about hanging out with women. Sometimes it's like you're trying to explain something to a woman sometimes, and it just feels like you should just stop talking, because everything you're trying to say is going right over the top of their head, right? And it's not because you're not really explaining it properly. You are, but because for some reason you're not saying exactly that saying things exactly how they want you to say it, it doesn't make any connection. So it could be frustrating sometimes just talking to a woman. And I couldn't imagine, like, I mean, you get married and you talk to your wife and stuff like that. But like, yeah, if I didn't have to do it, why would I do it? Oh man, I'm killing myself. I know everyone's gonna hate on me for saying that, but it's like, no, you know what I mean, though, right? Like, I'm talking to a woman because I'm married to one. I won't go out there and just trying to make one my best friend and like talk to one on a daily basis. Like, what for? No, I want to talk. I want to talk to men. Because I should be able to relate more to men than the women, right? I don't need that validation. Anyways, that's how I went on a rant. So the result of all these things that I was talking about, the feminist movement, the divorce rates, the homes, fathers absence of fathers in homes, it created um, soft men. It created men who are lonely because they can't get into relationships. They can't get into relationship because now they're more feminine than masculine, and the dynamic doesn't work, right? So for you to have if you have a feminine man, for you to have a relationship with a feminine woman would be tough, simply because the woman is already feminine. She needs you to be masculine to lead her, right? But if you can't lead her, she either loses that respect for you, or she tries to lead, right? She tries to lead herself. So the dynamic of a feminine man, they would need a masculine woman in order for the dynamic to work. It'll be tough as well. It'll be toxic. But a masculine woman usually needs a feminine man in order to in order to have a stable relationship. If you have a masculine man and a masculine woman, they continue to do this, right? It doesn't work. You know, a side note there for you guys. Anyways, the results was that now men who are feminine in nature, who are Mr. Nice Guys and soft men, they don't know how to motivate themselves in order to achieve things. Masculine traits is one of the masculine traits, um, is that men who are masculine achieve things. We build. Look around you, right? Men built so many things, and that is part of the masculine trait. So now, because men who are now nice guys and soft men, they can't really build, and they can't really earn money. They can't find their place because they don't know what they're doing. They can't find their place in society because they're not building anything. They're not achieving anything, right? And that creates a lot of frustration. That creates a lot of anxiety and rage inside of them. So, like I said before, there was a loss of core relationship values. Well, you know, the roles were reversed, but also men became more selfish in relationships. Men became validation seekers in relationship, and there was a communication breakdown. So men couldn't really communicate well with women because the masculine and the feminine, there's a confusion as to what these men actually are, right? Because in his nature, the Mr. Nice Guy is passive, manipulative. So he's not direct and tells you exactly what he really is feeling or thinking. And sadly, the suicide rates also went up due to this, just like we saw from the video. You know, when a man doesn't have good male role models in his life, you don't know what a man is supposed to look like. I don't think there is one man that embodies all the masculine traits. It's something that you would have to borrow or take from different men in order to build yourself, right? Because I think men aren't born men. I think men, we build ourselves. You know, just because I have a microwave doesn't make me a chef. I'd like to think so, though, but it doesn't, right? So I think just because you're born a man, it doesn't make you a man. Like we have to build ourselves. We have to build what type of man do we want to be. That's what I think. So when a man doesn't have good role models, he becomes a soft man because he would be more comfortable around women. You know, so like I talked about before, a soft male usually attaches himself to a dominant woman who treats him as another son in her household. That's so sad. You know, she just treats him like he's one of her sons. You know, bosses him around and, you know, controls and most likely manipulates him as well. Um, yeah, that's a sad state to be in. You know, a soft man is probably one of the most dangerous men you could find yourself with, Mr. Nice Guys. I'm not telling you the bad boys any better. Like I said before, I think the bad boy is pretty much the same as the nice guy. It's just slight tweaks here and there, but both of them are hiding the same way. Both of them are actually doing the same things, just from different just from different angles, right? They're both seeking validation, they're both manipulating you, they're both lying to you and hiding certain parts of themselves. You know, the core of what they're doing is the same. It's just a little different on the outside sometimes. So nice guys are dissatisfied with themselves. They're dissatisfied also with other men because it becomes a competition, right? They talk bad about other men. They always think that they can do better than other men. You know, that goes in relationships too, right? Nice guys always try to outdo the ex of the woman. You know, always trying to. I'm not that guy. I would never hurt you. I would never do that to you. He was a jerk. I'm a better person. I'm a better guy. Yeah. You know, you can't make um your relationship about a person. Let me repeat that. You can't make your relationship about a person, about the needs of a person. So what I'm trying to say is, like, if you are constantly trying to cater to the needs of your wife or your girlfriend, for example, you lose sight of what is important. You lose sight of what the goal of that relationship is supposed to be, because now all you're focusing on is her needs. But there's a bigger picture that you have to focus on, right? That's why you are supposed to be the lead, because you think more logically, whereas the woman thinks more emotionally. Together, it makes the perfect unit. But when you don't do that, it becomes a toxic environment. But anyways, you know what I'm trying to say. You know, the soft male lives a life of potential, but it's a lot. It's a potential that is never met. They fail at fulfilling their full potential most of the time. So you have a lot of men that are just unfulfilled in their lives, and that's a problem. That's a lot of emotional turmoil that they carry within them that they need to figure out, right? And unless they have figured that out, you know, when you attach yourself to someone like that, and um it could be a dangerous thing. They could lash out one day and do something bad to you, right? Just because you have someone that's doing everything you want them to do doesn't make them the perfect guy. All right? It doesn't make them the perfect guy at all. Sometimes we as individuals, we don't always do what is pleasing to everybody else. It's not a bad thing. It just means that we're different people. As long as our goals align, as long as our goals, we're working towards the same thing, that's what truly matters. We don't have to be the same people. You know what I mean? So just because you have a guy that's doing everything that you want and buying you all these things and flowers and every day of the week, like, no, man, it's doesn't mean that. That's not even love. That's from a place of fear, from a place of that's abandonment issues, right? I'm so scared of your reaction or losing you that I just cater to everything that you that I think you want, right? So, anyways, that is the problem that we are having and how it affects the relationships, how it affects the society, and the tragedy that we have witnessed, in the news about the mass shootings and suicide rates, um, men not doing well at school or even at the workplace, the accident rates. Maybe, you have men that are not concentrating on their job because maybe they had a fight with their partners one day and they went to work and not concentrating leads to accidents. But we've seen the result of the nice guy, the soft man. How do we fix it? That's what we should be all trying to find out, is how do we fix it? And this is something that we have to fix, right? The problem I have with society is that we I'm going to include myself in this because sometimes I do. We seek entertainment more than actually self-improvement. When we are looking at videos like such as these on the internet, it's not made this I don't make these videos for entertaining people. you know I make these videos to try to help and educate and put things in perspective, because that is more important than entertainment. Entertainment is something you get for a couple of minutes and it's gone, right? But if you learn the right lessons, that's something that could improve your life drastically, and something that would help the people around you, right? So that is one of my pet peeves about society, is that the 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 desire for entertainment is too powerful. It's like it's all everybody looks for is entertainment. We got to dial it down a little bit and really seek ways to improve ourselves. If we did, the society gets better. We have better relationships. We have better families and more masculine men in the society. We have kids that would have the freedom to speak their minds, will have the freedom to act in the way that they find true to themselves. And that's important. All right. How do you fix a nice guy? The Mr. Nice Guy, not just a nice guy. It's not a bad thing to be a nice guy, but that Mr. Nice Guy, we don't want to be that dude. All right. So how do we fix him? I got number one on my notes here. You got to hang out with more men. The nice guy, the Mr. Nice Guy, has to leave his female best friends behind and find male best friends. Try to find qualities in each of the people that you hang out with, the men that you hang out with, masculine traits from them, and take those masculine traits and try to build yourself up with it, right? Because that's the only way you're going to get masculine traits, is by hanging out with men. Remember, we talked about fatherless boys and how that created the Mr. Nice Guy. So to overcome that, you got to do the opposite, right? Okay. There's a lot of things you got to do the opposite of, by the way. So if you're a Mr. Nice Guy and you cater to everybody's needs before you cater to yours, you got to do the opposite of that. Cater to your needs before you cater to everybody else's needs. I'm not telling you that's something you got to do for the rest of your life. I'm just telling you that's something you have to do until you gain control of your actions, right? Until you put things in perspective and balance, so that you don't continually keep people pleasing. All right, you got to ask for what you want. So be direct with your request. If you're not clear with what you want, people don't know what you want. And you don't have to manipulate anybody if you're direct with what you want. You don't have to give this to get that, you know. But if you're direct with what you want, you can tell uh, the person that you're with, hey, I need you to do this a little better. I need you to treat me more this way or that way. And usually that's something that would, if you have someone that is reasonable, they would listen to you and hear you out, right? And do and comply with what you're saying. All right. Um, do not reinforce undesirable behaviors. Don't compartmentalize. So that means if you have bad traits in yourself, compartmentalizing those traits would not help you. So, if basically stop making excuses, stop making excuses for your bad traits. All right. That's what I'm trying to say here. So if you have a bad trait, fix it. Don't be like, oh, well, it's not that bad because I was doing it for for a good cause. Like I was hungry, so I went and robbed the store at gunpoint. Yeah, no, I know you're hungry, but just because you're hungry doesn't give you the right to rob anybody. Like, you know, imagine the trauma that you're causing for somebody someone else, right? You're taking food from their mouth in order for you to eat, right? That's why people invented jobs. Go get one. Anyway, so that's what it is. So it's like, don't make excuses for your bad behaviors. Take care of your bad behaviors, fix them, and get a hold of those behaviors. So like I said before, the last on my list, focus on your relationship and not your partner. There is a bigger picture. Always think about the bigger picture. My role in my relationship is not to please. I mean, it's part of it, but it's not the main role is not to please my wife, my spouse. My main role is to make sure that my relationship goes to the direction that I want it to go, right? Because sometimes if I focus solely on trying to please the person that I'm with, they can derail the plan that we have to to for our relationships. They can take us in the completely wrong direction, right? Because you're talking about emotions, you're talking about um, feelings that could change um, frequently. So you know, trying to cater to those feelings all the time, and it's not beneficial to do that. If you're doing the other things, it will transpire into keeping everybody in line and keeping everybody happy. That's just part of it. But don't make that your main focus, or make your partner your main focus. You got to make your relationship the focus. All right. Anyways, I hope that you've enjoyed uh this video, my rambling sometimes, but you know, I was trying to make some points that would help, you know, every one of us in the society to make better decisions and have better lives and better outcomes, because that's the most important thing, right? So sorry if I was rambling on at some points, but it is what it is, man. All right. Hey, if you've enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, and share this video with people that you know, and come back for more content. All right, I'm out of here. Peace.